All right, so we're going to solve this PLL parity with intuition, no algorithms, with a variation of a method I saw from a Chris Hardwick video. I'll link it below. Okay, but the way he explains it, we're in odd parity, which is something that can't happen on a 3x3 cube, but it can on a 4x4. And the way to get out of it is just 1/4 turn of an inner slice. We're out of parity. The problem is all our centers are messed up, but let's look at a real simple way to resolve the centers. So just watch first and then I'll explain it more. Once I do that last 1/4 turn, it fixes all my centers and I'm out of parity. The problem is I've got 4 edge pairs messed up, but we've already learned a method to solve edge pairs without disturbing the top or bottom, and we're going to use that method right now. So for example, what we want to do is just look at any solved wings. So for example, that one's solved, solved, solved. It's in the solved spot. And then what we want to do is just bring in, we want to look for a solved one that has its counterpart in the same layer, because we can use our edge flipping technique to flip that up here correct. Then when I slice this back, it'll solve the reds and yellows. So let's look at that. So I flip this, then now when I slice back, those are solved. This is a little messed up, but that's okay. As soon as I flip another pair, this will restore itself. I just got to remember to keep working in this, what I call the working slot. Okay, so now I'm just going to look for another. That's a solved edge pair, and that's its counterpart. Okay, so, or not a solved edge pair, but that's a solved wing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the other one that goes with it over here. When I flip this, I'm just going to flip it in the reverse method that I used earlier, which will restore all of that, puts that down in the right spot, and then when I slice back, that's correct, and now I've just solved these edges. So now I get over here to my last 2 edges. Okay, so now I'm down to my last 2 edges, and they're in the same plane, just like they should be. But they may look a little bit weird to you. So for example, this one's solved, that wing is in the solved place, that's not, that's not, that's not. But they're in the same plane. So how do we solve that? What do we do from here? Well, what I want to do is bring this orange white over here, and that's pretty easy. So I know I can get this right, but what's going to happen with these? We know that one's not going to flip. We know we can solve this. What's going to happen there? Well, let's just see. So let's bring this over. We're going to flip this. Now when I slice that back, that is solved. The problem is this is messed up and that's flipped. But that's actually a good thing, because once we flip this correct, it'll resolve this. So I'm going to flip that with the opposite method I just used, and there we go. So we just solved a very difficult parity that requires a very long algorithm, and we just did it with a pretty intuitive method. All right, so let's look at that one more time. In order to get out of this odd parity, we do a 1/4 turn of an inner slice, but now we have to fix all of these. And if you just do this slow and watch the pieces, it'll make sense to you, but we're just gonna keep shifting them around until they get all the way back into the correct location. Like I said, just do that a few times, it'll make sense. It's a little new to you. It'll take you a little bit. Okay, and then I can put it on either side, it doesn't matter. And then I just use my edge flipping techniques that we've already learned. So I'm looking for solved wings that I can work into. So I know I can solve this red yellow into this red yellow. So this is in the correct location, so I'm just gonna move it out of the way, flip this one up here, which very clearly matches. So that kind of makes sense. Okay, so now it matches. I bring this back down. I just have to remember to stay in this working slot. Then I look for the next. So let's see, I've got a red white, and that its counterpart is over here. So remember to keep working from this point. So what I'm going to do is bring it here, and then now when I flip that down here, it'll be correct. Flip that edge. In order to restore the top, I make sure I flip the opposite way I flipped earlier. Okay, so I just solved those, and now I'm to my last two edges. All right, so this should be pretty easy. I like to work from a solved wing. So not solved, not solved, not solved. This one is solved. So I need to get this one up here. Easiest way to do that is just bring this over and then flip them. All right, so flip. And then as soon as I restore that, these are solved. This is messed up, but this needs to be flipped. So that works out well for me. All right, let's look at that last little bit again though. Let's do this. All right, so again, this is the solved one. That's not. Okay, so there's a few different ways I can move it up here. So I can move this piece over, flip it, and then bring it back. But the more intuitive way is actually just to splice this into the solved one. So basically I move the solved one out of the way, splice into it, flip this, which puts it in the right spot. Then when I move that back, that's solved. Now I just have to actually move that over here to restore all of this and flip that. So I accomplished the same exact thing, just a little bit differently. So let's do that again. I'll flip this, okay? And then I'll just split these. All right. Now what happens, what if I flip these? What's gonna happen? Let's think about it. So if I split this over here and flip these, I'll bring that white over here, which isn't really where I want it, but let's just see what happens. So both edges are solved, and if we were just solving edges as we build the 4x4, that would be acceptable. But right now, it's not ideal. And when we flip this, you'll see why. Because I've given myself a parity. So you do kind of want to look at it a little bit with this method and then flip them in a way that's going to solve everything. If we're just building edges during the 3x3 reduction stage, it doesn't matter. But when we're actually trying to preserve the top and bottom because we've got pretty much a solved cube, it does matter. Now, this is easy to fix two ways. One, the algorithm. Okay, and the other is just intuitively with those same techniques we just used. So flip, split this up, whoops, split that one, flip, and we learned that in another video. So that may seem a little confusing at first. Definitely watch the Chris Hardwick video. Is it Hardwick or Chadwick? Let me see. Hardwick, yeah, Hardwick. So definitely watch the Chris Hardwick video that I'll link below, and then just practice it. It's actually a really simple concept. It's one that you're going to want to understand as you get into more puzzles.